Hello everyone. Today we continue following the journey of Dieuhan, a single mother in her search for her roots. A journey filled with trials and longing. She had never once seen their faces. She only knew of them through the fragmented distant stories told by old Mr. Chin. But Han believed him. She believed that the memories he shared couldn't have been made up. And if all of it were true, then somewhere out there in this vast world, isn't there still a place called home waiting for her to return? With a newfound determination, no more hesitation, no more doubt, Han began her journey with full resolve and sincerity. She traveled from village to village, from small markets hidden deep in alleys, to remote countryside places she had never even known existed. But as days passed and weeks turned into more weeks, that hope slowly began to fade. All she received were shaking heads, sympathetic glances, and heartfelt wishes of good luck. Even those kind words, though well-meaning, weighed heavily on her heart. She began to ask herself, what am I doing? Am I really searching for my birth parents, my true origin, or just chasing the childhood illusion? A blurry memory I created for myself, just to have something to hold on to. And finally, she decided to leave this place and return to her hometown while waiting for more news. She would go meet Mr. Chin and Uyên to ask for the address of her parents in the south. If the chance came, she'd travel there to find them. That afternoon, Han stood silently on Uyên balcony, her distant gaze lost in the sky. She missed home, the old house, and she wondered, was this journey to find her parents truly worth continuing? Uyên walked over, gently placing a hand on Han's shoulder. What are you thinking about? Missin' home? Han gave a small nod, her eyes tinged red. Yeah, I miss it a lot. I'm planning to go back. I'll leave my address with a family friend. Just in case my parents come looking, they'll know how to reach me. Uyên froze for a moment, then softly said, I'm really going to miss you when you're gone. Han gave Uyên hand a gentle squeeze and smiled. We'll see each other again. When you have time, come visit my hometown, okay? After a moment of quiet, Han looked worried. What if those thugs come back looking for you? Uyên reassured her. Don't worry, they don't know where I live. The An Ja Bao Kao Voi Kansat. It'll be fine. Han let out a sigh of relief and then said gently, would you come with me to the family friend's house? Uyên nodded right away. Let me grab my things, we'll go together. After getting ready, Han, Uyên, and little Tom quietly left the house together. The three of them held hands as they walked along a narrow dirt path leading away from the boarding house. Today, Han was going to see Mr. Chia, the only person she believed still held some memories of her parents. She had thought long and hard before deciding to return to his house, to personally leave her home address, hoping that one day her parents might find their way back to her. On the quiet road, Uyên suddenly broke the silence. Han, is your acquaintance's house far from here? Han smiled and replied, not really. Just past that small bridge up ahead, we'll be there soon. The three continued walking, but as they approached a narrow alley where the old roof of Mr. Chin's house could be seen in the distance, Uyên suddenly stopped. Her expression shifted. Her eyes seemed to drift off to a faraway place, lost in some distant memory. After a brief pause, Uyên asked hesitantly, Han is your acquaintance, Mr. Chin? Han smiled. Yeah, that's right. Why? Do you know him? Uyên gave a small, awkward smile. Not really. I think I've just heard the name somewhere before. Then come in with me. He's really kind, Han said cheerfully. The truth was, Uyên knew Mr. Chin far more than Han could have imagined. Mr. Chin, the man Han was now seeking for help, was actually Uyên stepfather. That part of the story, Uyên had never told anyone, not even Han, her closest friend at the moment. Uyên wasn't ready to face it yet. She placed a hand on her stomach and suddenly winced in pain. Han, I think I've got a stomach ache. I'll head back first, okay? I'm suddenly not feeling well. Han looked worried. What happened? Should I go buy you some medicine? Uyên waved her off. It's nothing. Probably just something I ate. You go ahead to Mr. Chin's house. I'll be fine after a bit of rest. Han looked at Uyên, a bit concerned, but didn't think too much of it. She lifted little Tom into her arms and continued on toward Mr. Chin's house. Without waiting for Han to ask any further, Uyên quickly turned and ran down the end of the street, hiding herself behind a large tree. But the truth was, she wasn't having a stomach ache. She was terrified because she had recognized him, Mr. Chin, her stepfather. And now the friend she trusted most was sitting there talking with the very man she feared the most. Her heart clenched. She couldn't believe it. She couldn't believe that Han could be someone like that. Desperate for clarity, Uyên quietly circled back, slipping behind the house and hiding in a secluded spot, straining to hear the conversation inside. She held her breath. Inside, Mr. Chin's voice was calm, steady, not threatening, not suspicious. And Han was still the same Han. Her voice was gentle, sincere. She spoke of her desire to find her birth parents and how she planned to leave her address in case they ever came back for her. Uyên froze. Han didn't know. She didn't know that Mr. Chin was her stepfather. And more importantly, she had no intention of harming Uyên. At that moment, a new wave of fear rose inside Uyên. Han didn't know that she was sitting dangerously close to a man who could destroy her. She had to do something. She had to get Han out of there now. Uyên looked around, then whispered urgently, Han, come outside. But her voice was too soft it couldn't possibly reach Han. She turned and saw little Tom playing near the porch. Tom, come here. But strangely, today Tom didn't respond like he usually did. He stood there, clutching a blade of grass, looking around in confusion, unaware of what was going on. Running out of options, Uyên clenched her jaw, picked up a small branch, aimed it toward Han, who was sitting with her back turned, and threw it. The branch rolled across the ground and gently tapped her foot. Han startled slightly and turned, but before she could see anything clearly, the conversation ended. She took her son's hand and walked out of the alley, completely unaware of the anxious, frightened eyes watching her from behind. Uyên exhaled, her heart a little lighter, knowing that Han had left safely. But at the same time, a deep, overwhelming sense of unease crept in. Was this truly the end, or just the beginning of something far more dangerous waiting ahead? Just as expected, Uyên didn't leave right away. She remained hidden quietly behind the house. Inside Mr. Chin and his wife's small home, the sound of footsteps faded. Han had just exited through the gate. Suddenly, the atmosphere inside turned tense. Mrs. Chin raised her voice. Why did you keep that girl here? What are you planning to do to her? Mr. Chin let out a long sigh, clear irritation in his eyes. You don't understand anything. I've got a plan. Mr. Hung said, whoever finds his biological daughter for him, he'll reward them generously. Mrs. Chin went pale, glaring at her husband. Then why didn't you tell me earlier? I could have treated the girl better. Mr. Chin slammed his hand hard on the table. Treat her better? You just ruined everything. If the girl leaves without leaving her address, how am I supposed to squeeze money out of Mr. Hung? Flashback to the previous day, Phuc had come to Mr. Bin's house to collect a debt. Mr. Chin promised to repay it within 3 days, and now he had made a decision. He would keep Han around to blackmail Mr. Hung Han's real father. Uyên held her breath, her heart pounding in her chest. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. Han was just a pawn in Mr. Chin's plan to extort money. Uyên collapsed to the ground. Her mind was spinning. She had no idea what to do. How could she save her friend from the trap that was about to close in? On the narrow path leading home, the two walked in silence. Uyên wanted to tell Han everything about Mr. Chin, about the danger that was drawing near. But fear held her back. She was afraid Han would panic, afraid that saying it out loud would only make things worse. Several times she opened her mouth to speak, but each time the words faltered and silence took over. Han slowed her steps, glancing at her friend. She could sense something was wrong. In fact, ever since they had approached Mr. Chin's house, Han had noticed something strange in Uyên eyes, a quiet fear, a deep anxiety she had never seen before. Why is Uyên so scared? Han wondered. Could she know something that I don't? Doubt began to creep into Han's mind. The pieces of the puzzle weren't fitting together. She began to question herself. Should I really stay here? Or should I go back home and wait for more information from Mr. Chin? Inside Han, a growing sense of unease took root. She had no idea that she was already being drawn into a danger far greater than she imagined. And Mr. Chin, what would he do next? That answer remains a mystery. Stay tuned for the next part to find out what happens to Han and Uyên.
Trên con đường nhỏ dẫn về nhà, cả hai bước đi trong im lặng. Cô muốn nói cho Hân biết tất cả về ông chứng, về nguy hiểm đang cận kề, nhưng cô lại sợ Hân sẽ hoảng loạn, sẽ làm mọi chuyện tệ hơn. Nhiều lần cô mở miệng định nói, nhưng rồi lại ngực và im lặng. Hân bước chậm lại, ánh mắt liếc nhìn bạn thân. Cô cảm thấy có điều gì đó không ổn, nhưng Hân biết ngay từ lúc hai người đến gần nhà ông chính. Hân đã cảm nhận rõ sự lạ thường trong ánh mắt của Uyên, một nỗi sợ hãi sâu kín, hoang mang mà cô chưa từng thấy trước đây. Tại sao Uyên lại hoảng sợ như vậy? Hân tự hỏi, phải chăng Uyên biết điều gì đó mà mình không biết? Sự nghi ngờ bắt đầu lên lỏi trong lòng Hân. Những mảnh ghép dường như không ăn khớp. Cô bắt đầu tự hỏi liệu mình có nên tiếp tục ở lại đây hay nên quay về quê chờ thêm thông tin từ ông chính. Trong lòng Hân, một nỗi bất an lớn dần lên. Cô không biết rằng chính mình đang bị cuốn vào một nguy cơ lớn không tưởng tượng. Còn ông chính, liệu ông sẽ làm gì tiếp theo? Câu trả lời vẫn còn là một ẩn số. Hãy cùng mình đón xem phần tiếp theo để biết chuyện gì sẽ xảy ra với Hân và Uyên nhé.